Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Today, we are going to get better at health, and we're going to do so by talking about stability, body stability. Now, this is going to be a fun topic. This is certainly a different one, not one that we are typically talking about, but something I've been thinking about recently. As about a week or so ago, I flew out to Dallas from Phoenix, where I live, and I participated in a series, about 7 hours actually, of testing to kind of figure out where I stand health-wise. For what it's worth, if you're curious, I went to a facility. It's called Fountain Life. You could go to fountainlife.com. You could find it all there. But it's a Peter Diamandis, Tony Robbins a deal where, you basically go through a battery of tests, EKG, MRIs, CAT scans, as well as a series of other types of tests, one of which we're going to talk about here in a moment. And the outcome is, you get the results and you go through them with a variety of different doctors and health specialists and kind of come up with your plan. So it's a really interesting experience, one I'll talk about in the future. But one of the tests they actually gave me had to do with my balance. And so they did a couple different things, including having me stand on some sort of apparatus that was just gauging the way my weight is being distributed, both with my eyes open and then with my eyes closed, and then ran a series of those tests, and it kind of grades where you stand. And then we did some other things we'll talk about here today. Now, why should you care about your balance? Let's start there. Why should you care about your stability? Well, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Peter Attia. We've talked about him here at the podcast before. And Dr. Attia talks about his 4 pillars. His 4 pillars of exercise, really the 4 pillars of longevity. And those pillars are stability, strength, aerobic, and anaerobic pillars. Right? So stability is the first one he works on. First one he talks about, especially as it pertains to longevity. And why is that? Because as you age, especially once you get past the age of 40, your stability, your balance begins to decline. And when you research, what you find is that balance decline actually increases the likelihood of you getting hurt in your latter years and potentially even dying. As a matter of fact, there was a study done by the British Journal of Sports Medicine about a year and a half ago. And it found that people who are unable to stand on one leg for 10 seconds in their later life have almost double the usual risk of premature death. Researchers found they tested 1,700 people from the ages of 51 to 75. All of them were free of walking problems. So for relatively healthy 51 to 75-year-olds, 1,700 of them, and they followed them for 7 years. And during those years, a handful of them died of various causes. But after taking participants' age and underlying conditions and weight and other factors into consideration, the scientists determined that failing the balance test was associated with an 84% higher risk of dying within the study period, compared to those that passed the balance test. So I don't know what more we need to hear as Peter Attia tests and as this British Journal of Sports Medicine study finds. You are increasing your risk or potential risk of dying earlier if your balance is lacking, particularly in your latter years. So how do you then, how do you test your balance, right? How do you go about testing your balance? I think there's a handful of things that we can do. The first thing that we could all do is a single leg balance test. So literally standing on one leg with your hands on your hips or at your sides. So you want to stand on one leg and try to maintain your balance for as long as possible. Repeat this same test on the other leg. Go ahead and do it right now. Try it out. How well do you stand arms at your side on one leg? How well do you stand on your other leg? Hold that. I'm not going to have time to wait for you right now. You come back and review this again. Now, once you've done that, I want you to do the same thing. Stand on the right leg again, let's say. But this time I want you to close your eyes. Measure how long you're able to do it before your left leg falls down and touches. Now switch legs, do the same thing. What the research shows in terms of standing on your single leg, closing your eyes as well as opening your eyes. If you are between the ages of 18 to 39, the average eyes open, the average length of time individuals stand 18 to 39 on one leg, eyes open, is about 43, 44 seconds. The average 18 to 39 eyes closed is about 15, 16 seconds. 40 to 49-year-olds, eyes open, about 40 seconds. Eyes closed, about 12 seconds. 50 to 59-year-olds, eyes open, about 37 seconds. Eyes closed, about 8 seconds. And 60 to 69-year-olds, eyes open, about 27 seconds. Eyes closed, about 4 seconds. So generally speaking, an individual should be able to stand on one leg with their eyes open for over 30 seconds and with their eyes closed for over 10 seconds. And if you're a well-trained athlete, you should be able to do even more. Eyes closed, you should be able to do double that. If you're unable to do that length of time, I'm no doctor, but I'm going to assume you may have a balance issue, and this is a great opportunity. Some other things you can do to test your balance. Try a tandem stance test. Stand with one foot directly in front of the other, with the heel of the one foot touching the toes of the other. Now try to maintain this stance for at least 30 seconds with your hands on your hips or at your sides. Swap feet, this time put the other foot in front and see how well you stand for 30 seconds. Assess both sides. If you can't make it 30 seconds, you may have a balance issue. The other quick things you could do, stand on one leg again. This is the stork stand test. Stand on one leg and lift the other knee as high as possible while maintaining your balance. This should be a little harder. Arms at your side or on your hips. Try to hold this position for 30 seconds. Switch legs. So pick that knee up, switch legs. Last thing, maybe balance on a foam pad if you really want to test yourself. Now, as you go through these tests, you may identify that you have a balance issue. And balance, as we just described, is incredibly important. Stability is incredibly important especially as you get into your latter years. So now the question becomes, how do you improve your balance? And there's no there's no secret sauce here. Start working on it. Start working on that single balance test. Start working on that tandem stance test and the stork stand test. Practice it. In addition, there are a variety of exercises that we don't have to run through today because you've got this amazing thing known as Google. And what I found is if you Google ways to improve my balance, you will find a plethora of things that you can do. From things like improving your core strength, maybe doing some planks or more abdominal or core work that strengthens your entire core, which thereby increases stability, to doing things like, deadlifts, if your body is capable of doing so. Doing deadlifts, which are a little bit heavier, but engage a number of muscles that play well or support your overall stability. So there's a number of things you can do. I think today's episode, the point was bring awareness to your balance, your stability. And if you're lacking, okay, I'm so glad you know, because now you can go and improve it. And in improving it, believe it or not, you are increasing the years in which you may live. This balance scenario, again, it came about for me because I went through this test. It wasn't something I'd really considered all that much. And to be candid with you, I think there's a lot of room for improvement in my balance. I'm a pretty active individual, but I've never really focused on my stability and my balance. And at 40, almost 45 years old, it's probably time I increase focus. So for me, I'll be doing those tests, but I'll also be intentionally strengthening those muscles that in fact influence my balance. And I'll be studying more Peter Attia because he spends quite a bit of time talking about stability and balance. He's my prophet when it comes to this sort of thing. So on that note, that's all I have for you today. Fun episode. Hopefully you got something out of it. Go back and make sure you take these tests because I think you're going to find a lot of things out for yourself and maybe a new direction. That's all I have for you today in the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.